de encontrar. Soy así, ya es muy tarde para cambiar. Yo no espero nada, vivo sin rumbo. Solo quiero amar cada segundo. Soy aquel.
Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lino Martinez. Today, I would love to welcome Regan Forston. He's a past board member in charge of public engagement for the Newton Institute. The Newton Institute's mission is to uncover the mysteries of the afterlife. With the help of over 230 trained facilitators scattered over 42 countries, they have discovered what happens to a person at death, where they go, and what they do while they are waiting to reincarnate. This process is called life between lives, which allows clients to expand their awareness of what lies beyond the physical world. With over 70,000 successful sessions, they have, in a sense, mapped out the afterlife or heaven. The Newton's Institute published research has sold over 1 million copies. Sessions are now available to anyone in the world, in person or online. Most therapists have about a 90% success rate with clients, and Regan is the author of a book that he wrote about his personal experience in the afterlife called 3 Hours and 33 Minutes in Heaven. I love this topic. I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate to get started here. I'm excited. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast, Regan.
Thank you. Thank you, Lino. Yes, great. Good to be here today. And it's always, I could do a podcast every day and not get tired of it, because anytime you're talking about spirit, there's something energy that just kind of comes that just makes you feel like you're right where you're supposed to be, you know.
Is this a feeling that you always had prior to being in this current world that you're in now? Did you always have this passion about spirit?
Well, I had to wake up.
Sure. In the process of waking
like a lot of it for a long time. But one thing that kind of set the tone for my life was that when I'm 4 years old, I go to sleep, and when I wake up, I'm on the ceiling looking down at my body, and it scared the heck out of me, you know. So then all of a sudden I'm on my body, I'm looking at the ceiling, and I see like a globe of energy, and then I'm back up there. I was back and forth, back and forth. So I jumped out of bed and I ran into my dad's room and like, you know, so he came in the room, took a broom under the bed, saying there's no ghosts, or, you know, how does a 4-year-old just, you know, talk about that? You know,
Regan, I have a
you don't have
question
no frame
about
of
that.
reference. So it's scary.
You said you saw a globe of energy. What did that look like? What do you mean a globe of energy?
Okay, the best I can remember it now, this one, 4 years old, but it kind of is one of those experiences that's ingrained in you. So you see, but now I'm seeing it was like whitish, maybe a little bluish in there, maybe about the size of a football or a basketball, I would say, maybe a little smaller. It happened. It was so fast. It was like I'm up there looking down. Now I'm in my body looking up, and back, boom, boom, boom. You know, like I was jumping in my body and out of my body, back and forth that way. But being a 4-year-old, I didn't know how to process this, and
Sure.
it happened like 2 or 3 nights in a row, and I started getting afraid to go to sleep. So what does a 4-year-old do? My solution to the 4-year-old was to sit in bed and hold my eyes open. So
Man.
but eventually I did, and then, but then I opened my eyes and I had two male figures standing right in the middle of my room, dressed in white. I was not scared at all. It seemed perfectly natural. And they, either through telepathy or something, they said, it's okay. It's okay. It's not going to happen again. Just, you can go to sleep now. And when they told me that, I felt like, oh, okay. You know, it was so natural that way. And then didn't happen again until I was 23 years old. And I was old enough to kind of understand. I wasn't scared like a little 4-year-old that doesn't understand. But when that happened is that, you know how all things, you say coincidence or something, I was led to a spiritual path. It was called Ekankar. And they just pretty much gave me some spiritual exercises to do. They said, here, do these spiritual exercises. That'll connect you to the other side and have a good life, you know. And thinking an ancient name for God, which was Hu, H-U, like Hu. It's kind of like Om or Om, but it's supposed to be the higher vibration. Like, so I said, well, I want to have this soul, because they called it soul travel, you know, out of body travel. And I wanted so much to do that I did it for I think 6 weeks. almost without fail. And nothing really happened except I would see lights in my vision, or after it, I would feel calm. I would feel good. So, and then one night I did it, and then all of a sudden I woke up in a whole different world, and I was totally aware. And I was aware that I was down somewhere sleeping, but I'm aware, fully conscious in this other world. And it was so cool because the skies were, that's what made it so cool. It's like the skies were like yellow instead of blue. And I was looking, it looked like wheat fields, but it was so smooth. And and these acres and acres, and about every acre had this giant, beautiful, magnificent tree. It was like, I could just say like oak, thick and that, but just even better than that. And then I realized I was seeing 360 degrees. And I thought, whoa, this is weird. I got to be out of my body, that way.
Yeah.
And I felt like buckets of love were dumped on me. And then I just, came back in my body when I realized that I was like, oh, I'm out of my body. Boom, I'm back in my body. And then I started, that was kind of my big wake up call. I lost my fear of death. I realized I'm not just this, that I'm going to exist somewhere else. And that was, I was off and running, my early, 20s, probably 23 at the time, when that happened.
Regan, I'm curious, from having this experience, the outer body experience, you call it an outer body experience?
Yeah. Because I felt that I was somewhere else in full consciousness, but I wasn't in my physical
In your
body.
body. So you had the experience at 4 and then again at 23. Do you feel, and I don't know if you've given yourself the opportunity to ask yourself this question, that these experiences that you've had, that not many people can say they've had or been aware that they've had, have led you to the life mission?
Yes. When in my book, The 3 Hours, 33 Minutes, I go back to my childhood and kind of shows how all these things that didn't seem to make sense to me at the time, led me to, to being a life between life therapist. It's like I had to see, like I was a comedian for 30 years, So, I mean, I started as a professional clown. I did like 4,000 children's birthday parties, malls and fairs. My wife and I, my first wife of 20 years, was a very well-known clown, and we worked as like a comedy team, and we did a lot of fairs and malls. I actually taught clown school at the University of
wow.
Wisconsin and Michigan. They had a program in the summertime when people would come from all over the world who wanted to be a clown for a living, like an occupation,
Sure.
and we taught, and then that morphed into me becoming a corporate comedian. I'm as a ventriloquist, and I would get paid to do corporate roast where they would tell me all about their product and service and give me all kinds of dirt on the people they wanted to poke fun at, and I did that I was very well paid, and did that. It was kind of my living for a while. And then all of a sudden in 2008, then that financial crisis happened. I was lucky to even get hired. I mean, instead of say getting $5,000 to come in and do a show, I was maybe $500. They could say, oh, that's all we can afford, or we can't have you. So again, I'm with my girlfriend. She's in the car. She sees a little 2-line ad that says, oh, learn hypnosis for free. And I went, oh, that's it. And it was the largest hypnotherapy school in the world, which is in Los Angeles. It's there on Ventura Boulevard in Tarzana, called HMI, or Hypnosis Motivational Institute.
Oh,
and
wow.
they're accredited school for hypnosis. And I know you've studied hypnosis. Yeah, so I just thought, okay, this is because I'm following my inner guidance. I'd learned at that time about this,
Yes.
to follow my, my dreams, the visions I would have. And I go, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to learn how to be a stage hypnotist, because I could work at a nightclub or something and do the same show every week. It would be different people, but same template,
Right.
but different people. So the show would be different every week. As a comedian, you go in and do a club one week, you can't go the next week because everybody already saw your stuff,
Right.
But when I was in there, and all of a sudden I realized how the mind works and how you can actually take programs out and get rid of them, put new programs in. I thought, God, why don't they teach this to kids to give them some empower, that they have power over their life, And so at one point I said, you know what? I'm not going to make people quack like ducks. I'm going to try to help them with their issues and stuff, So then
How did that come about, Regan? How did
Yeah.
you say, you know, I'm not going to make them quack like ducks. I'm going to help them with their issues. I mean, how was that? Because those are two completely different things. So
Yes.
how did you, I mean, was that just a message, or was that an intuitive
I,
nudge that you had,
yeah,
or just
it
a
was like,
realization and awakening?
it was this inner guidance of a calmness to my heart, to my being. And I'm realizing this is what I'm here going to hypnotherapy school. Like my mind tricked me that I was going to be a stage hypnotist. And now I'm in here and I can feel this guidance or something kind of molding me into a vehicle to help people, you
Oh,
know.
that's magnificent. I love it.
So, you know, I mean, long story short, I didn't want to have any other job, but, you know, it takes a long time to build a practice. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you know that with what you've done. So I decided to move out of my apartment and move into my van. And I would just go where God wanted me to go. And boy, did he have me go places. And I would be with people that had, I mean, everyone I was with, I thought, man, this is above my pay grade here. I mean, these people are hurting so bad. There's so much pain out there for people, so
Mm-hmm.
many experiences people are going through. And so, but then I figured, okay, God, here I am with them. I must supposed to be with them, and then it would all work out, and I would help them, and they would say, "Wow, you've helped me so much. I've got a sister, but she's 200 miles away." I says, "Okay." So I'd go down there, and that would lead me to another place, and another place, and another place. And it was an experience of letting go all my worldly goods. One time I'm
Yeah.
sitting in my van at night and I realized, wow, I don't know where my next session is going to be. And I looked and I got 84 cents, you know, and everything else I'd given up. And I think at the time I said I'm 62 years old and I have 84 cents, and I was happier than I'd ever been, you
Because
know.
you let go of
Uh,
all the attachments, all the things that keep people attached to things that don't define your life
yes.
or give you purpose.
Yes, and my total expenses was except for gas and food was less than $100, was like $90. A little bit for storage of a few things I had, and my cell phone, you know. And I don't know, I tell you, it was so freeing to just let go of all this stuff. And then it kind of all slowly started coming back to me, but with a whole different um, in a whole different way, you know,
You had to
that way.
let go of all that attachment to let in your next journey, your next
Yeah,
path, to see the light of what was being shined in front of you so that you can follow your new path.
yeah, yeah. Um, it was neat, and I got to this inner guidance thing is just so. It's like when you connect, it's like what's happened to you when you're telling me some of your story, and your listeners probably know a lot about you. But you know, it's like when that inner guidance comes, you start trusting, and it's a game changer for your whole life and how you look at everything, and you become more spiritual. Um, and that's why I love doing this work. When I'm sitting next to a client and they're in the afterlife and they're having this life-changing kind of experience, and I'm there to share that with them in a way, you know, it's like I feel like I'm there every time with them in a sense, you know. And I feel so. I think this whole thing is about healing me as well as my clients, you know,
Oh yeah,
getting healed and everything. And
definitely.
there's so much that we've learned. Before I forget, like Journey of Souls. That's the book that sold about 1 million copies.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've listened
is
to the audiobook. Hey, but
yeah,
before one
okay.
moment, Reagan, I don't want to forget this. Before we continue to Journey of Souls and connecting with your clients to your afterlife, let's go back to the hypnosis. So you went to the hypnosis school and you started seeing clients and driving the distance to heal them through hypnosis. What type of modality of hypnosis were you using back then?
Well, actually, um, I was using an energy psychology more than the hypnosis when I started using it. It was called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. Some
Mm-hmm.
people know it as tapping. It's
Mm-hmm.
like psychological acupuncture. I learned it in hypnotherapy school, but it seemed too silly. It's like, okay, someone's got post-traumatic stress and I'm going to have them do this and it's going to get better. You know,
Sure.
hypnosis is so much more cool, you know, so much more of a
Right.
thing. But then one of my first clients, this is how spirit works. One of my first clients, um, I had met him. He was a doctor, and I can even even if his name slips out, it's okay. He's writing a book about all this and he's totally fine with this. Really cool guy. I met him at a party he was having at his house when I was with a friend, and he asked me what I did, and I told him. He says, "Oh, you're a hypnotherapist. Can I have your card?" 2 years later, he calls me out of the blue and he says, "Regan, I'm, Dr. So-and-so." Said, "You remember me?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I met you at that party." He says, "I need your help." And I said, "Okay, I'll drive to Riverside, which is about 100 miles from LA, over that way. It's in your neck of the woods." And he said, "No, I'm in LA." And I said, "Oh, that's even better." So I went to go see him. At the time I met him, he had a thriving medical practice. He had an 8,000 square foot house overlooking Riverside. He had 2 Bentleys, 2 Dobermans that were like trained, like, I mean, they were like soldiers, these Dobermans. They had a butler. Oh my gosh. When I met him in this room, he says, "Regan, you remember I had the house and everything?" He says, "I don't have those anymore." He says, I have like less than $100 to my name right now, and I've lost those." And he said, "I don't have a practice anymore. I'm driving a rented van. A friend's letting me stay in this apartment here for a while, and my wife's in federal prison, you know." And what had happened was he was accused of being a drug dealer over the internet, selling illegal drugs with another doctor's license from Canada. Come to find out, his wife was using his license behind his back and doing this because she was a drug addict and he didn't even know it.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it cost him millions of dollars in legal fees, ruined his reputation. And so he said, I feel like I want to kill myself. He says, "No woman will ever have me. I'm just branded this, you know." And so this is one of my first clients, and here I am starting. And again, I'm going, what do I
Wow.
do with this?
Yeah,
You know?
right.
So
My
his big
goodness.
problem was, I said, "What's your biggest problem?" He says, "I can't start a business again because I'm unable to answer a telephone." "What do you mean?" He says, "If the phone rings, I've not been able for months and months now. I can't even get myself to pick it up." And I said, "Okay, close your eyes on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being there's no way you can pick up a phone, and 8 or 7, and 1, no problem." He says, "Man, I'm in a 10 plus. I don't know why, but I cannot pick up a phone." And then I remembered, oh, I learned this EFT, which is supposed to help with that, this tapping thing. So I said, let's try an experiment here. And I remembered the points to tap.
Mhm.
15 minutes, he went from a 10, and I had him close his eyes. I says, "Okay, the phone's ringing. Okay, the phone is ringing now on a scale of 1 to 10. Can you go get it?" He goes, "Weird, I'm a 0. I'm at a 0. I went, "Oh my God," the first time I tried that on someone, he goes from a 10 to a 0 in
That's
like 20 minutes.
amazing.
It's amazing. From that day on, he was able to restart. He started building a practice again. Um, he ended up a couple of years later, he had a 3-year-old Bentley or something. He had fallen in love with a woman from Russia and was going to get married. He asked me to be a groom at his wedding
That's
because I
amazing.
helped him turn things around. Fast forward to now, he invented something when he was in college, when he was becoming a doctor. He's from Nigeria, and he came over and he's a doctor in Oklahoma, and he's working in the lab. He ends up inventing this stuff that's way more effective than Neosporin is. It just really fast. It makes your body heal and everything. He got it approved by the FDA. 12 years fighting in court because everybody wanted a piece of the action now that he did that, saying
Sure.
it should be there. He finally got the full thing to it, and he made $13 million on it last year.
Oh, that's
From
incredible.
that product, and now a pharmaceutical wants to buy him out for $1 billion.
That's amazing. That's
That's a
amazing.
story. See, like, your story's amazing. His
Yeah.
story is amazing this way. But
Regan, that story's amazing. And also it's amazing because again, I'm
so
feeling into your
yeah,
life mission. So you're
yeah,
on this journey to heal people and have them be their best self, their highest self, and to bring out their gifts to share with the world is what I'm feeling
yes.
from this.
That's the whole crux of this life between lives thing, is you get to ask
Okay.
over there and get confirmation on why you decided to be born. Because when people decide, we find other life, they come down all, "Hey, I'm ready to go." When the
Mhm.
wall of forgetfulness comes up, a lot of people forget what their mission is. I don't know. It's all supposed to be for a reason, because you're supposed to wake up to your mission eventually. Like, most people that come to me are like in their 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s,
Mhm.
and they've lived a lot of their life, and they go, "Why do I have to be this old now?" And just finding out what my mission is.
Sure.
But they find out that, in a sense, they've been in preschool and in grade school and high school and college, and it was all to help them, to give them the tools for
Sure.
what the mission is.
Right. So
And
then So then after the hypnosis, how long did you do that for? I mean, thank you for sharing that story. That incredible story is
Sure.
really motivation,
Oh
definitely
gosh.
motivating. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so
I love that.
empowering. It really is. So after, I mean, how long did you do that type of emotional freedom technique, that type of tapping on your clients?
Well, what I started doing is I started incorporating, like a lot of times I would do the tapping
Hmm.
for especially fears and phobias and things.
Hmm.
And then what I would do is I'd put them in a light state of hypnosis to reinforce everything, you know, so that that would, would just to be sure to stick. But most of the times this tapping, like if people on my website, there's two videos on there. And one of them, you'll see 4 veterans that have severe post. I mean, when they're talking, they're like this. And then in 4 sessions of EFT, they're talking like they're perfectly normal and they can't believe it. They said, wow, I'm still thinking of those horrible things, but I'm not falling apart.
Hmm. And so
And then
what's
6 months later, we test them and they're
and they're better. What's the science behind EFT tapping? I mean, how does it quote unquote
okay.
work?
Here's the farthest they've gotten. Us therapists were having such success with this, especially with post-traumatic stress and fears and phobias, that sort of thing. We're screaming at the psychological community that, man, this is way better than talking therapy. I mean, this gets stuff done instead of going for years and years of just talking about something. Let's just take care of, get to that deep energetic problem that's in your body, and let's get that down. So Harvard heard about this and they said, hey, we can probably test this. So they got a bunch of volunteers. They test their cortisol level before and after tapping for 5 minutes. And what they found out, they couldn't believe it. They said people's cortisol levels in 5 minutes reduced by up to 50% just by tapping these different parts of the. They saw people go like this to being calm. Okay, and they watched what happened to the amygdala, which is your stress. It's in the front part of your brain here, and it's firing when you're stressed. And they watched it calm down.
Okay.
And the best they could say in the paper they published was, we don't know exactly how this works. All we know is that it works, that when people tap, there's a beneficial physiological effect on the human body. That's why we see people even getting cured of illnesses from this, because what the tapping does, it does like acupuncture does, is it opens up the pathways so the body can naturally heal itself. Because when we're stressed, when we're upset about something, just figure you have an open tube, but then you start being stressed, you close it, you squeeze it off, and pretty soon, if you're so bent with anger and hatred and self-hate and this, the worker bees that need to get where they need to go can't even get through the doors.
Sure.
So when you tap, it just opens that up, and then the body can heal itself.
So it's kind of like opening up the energy because we've got these energetic knots that are stuck within our body. And from my understanding, what I remember from EFT technique, there's specific parts of your body that you tap on,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
these specific areas, because you can't just tap on anything, correct? You can't just
Yeah, it's the meridians or the tapping points for
yeah,
the
right.
work of the body. And I had a man come to me 2 years ago now. He came to me to go life between life. I'll change his name and stuff here, but he was an ex-gang member in a Hispanic gang, and he'd been in prison for a while. He got out. He's now in his 40s, and he found Michael Newton's book, Life, not Life, Journey of Souls. And he read it, and he's thinking, there's got to be a reason I'm here on this planet, because I should have been dead many times. He'd been shot 6 different times in 6 different gun battles. He showed me some of the scars, and he lived through it. Okay. His car got stuck on a train track, completely demolished his car. He walked out with a few scratches. But what his biggest thing was, his son was trying to get into gangs now in his early 20s, and he was being hard nosed on his son. Don't want you to do it, son, because you're going down a bad road here.
Oh,
He
yeah.
got in a fight with his son. His son came in the middle of the night and shot him in the head while he was sleeping. And the bullet went in his ear, came out down here. So he was lucky it didn't go up in here, So he just had this big scar here. And then he told the police some cock and bull story about how the gun went off, because he said the worst thing you could do is have a son in prison. Okay, because that's going to make it even worse. He's going to join a gang. And then his son dies of drug overdose a few weeks later.
Wow.
So not only did he lose the son he loved, but he had that, felt bad that happened. So we tried doing the EFT, but we tried doing the life between lives thing, but he went right from beta to delta. He didn't go to theta, which is where you need, and that's because of drug use right now. He was on certain, taking drugs. And so we figured that out afterwards. So when he came out of that, and I says, well, this isn't going to work until you, kind of get off some drugs for a while. We'll try it again, but let's work on this, your son shooting it. And on a scale of 1 to 10, his eyes closed. He goes, I said, 10 being the worst it can be. He goes, I'm a 23, man. It's a 23. I said, okay, let's try to work on it. So we did the EFT with him for about 25 minutes. I had him close his eyes again. Okay, I said, you were to 23. That's crazy. I says, where are you now? And his subconscious shows him and he goes, gosh, my body feels like I'm only at a 4. He couldn't believe it. He was at from 23 to a 4 in like 20 minutes.
Incredible.
He came back a few weeks later. We got it to 0. 3 months later from that, he came back. We tested, he's still at a 0. He says, I don't know what the blank you did.
Yeah.
I says, not me. I says, all we
Right.
did is we found that energy that was stuck somewhere in your body.
Sure.
We brought it back home to where it's supposed to be. And so you just, that energy just deflates like a balloon. So that's the best that we can tell right now. Havening touch is it's the new kid on the block right now. And you can learn that in 5 minutes. It's like giving yourself a hug. It's like brushing these different parts of your body, 3 things, the face, that, and you can learn it real quick. And scientists are saying is something about what doing that is kind of rebuilding broken neural pathways in your mind. So for people out there that have, stuff you've been carrying around on your shoulders and that's been pulling your energy down from violence you've had happen to yourself as a child or whatever this emotional thing has, this energy psychology stuff works. It works.
Oh,
It's
yeah, definitely.
amazing. And I love doing that for people too, because sometimes, especially I wrote a book called Phobia's Gone in 1 Hour. And it's to teach people how through the tapping, how to get rid of any fear and phobia.
Oh, I love it.
Because in one session, I can have their phobia totally gone and they're done with it, by just balancing their energy,
Right.
It's like God's making all these gifts right now, to us, to try to help us to kind of heal ourselves so we can get to work instead of focusing on ourselves to work outwards to help the world, to help other people to be of, like you're doing, like, you're a light work, I'm a light work, because we're just letting people know of all these fantastic new things that we've discovered that God's allowed us to discover.
Yes,
So
definitely.
yeah. So
And
it's great.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
And so then after doing the EFT technique with patients, that was the type of hypnosis that you were using. What pushed you? What was your next path after that?
Well, a few people came to me and they said, hey, I hear in hypnosis you can do past life regression. And I said, yeah, we kind of learned a technique in school. And me being a spiritual person, believing that myself, I said, hey, that would be kind of fun,
Sure.
So I do sessions for them. And it was like amazing how I couldn't believe how easy it was for people. I would say probably at the time, even 90%, I would just do some simple, get them into even a light state of hypnosis. And they all of a sudden they're seeing all these images of their past lives and everything. So I love that. And then, so this is how it all works. I was helping a client, trying to get him into a senior facility. He couldn't afford to paint his house. He's a client. And so I said, hey, let me at least try to paint the front of the house for you. And it was 100 over in LA. It was one of those hot days, it was over 100 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
And that night, I'm in my van, I'm sleeping in my van and I start shaking and I figure, oh my God, I think I have sunstroke, because it was like horrible. I had to drive the next day back up to San Francisco because my girlfriend at the time was taking me to Hawaii for my birthday. Okay. So I got there, I'm not feeling good, but I figure, okay, I'll get over this in a day or so. We'd land in Hawaii and I'm shaking so bad. She takes me right to the emergency room. They said, we got to take an x-ray here. They did. And they said, do you smoke? And I said, no, not since I was 14 for a little bit. He says, we think you might have stage 4 cancer, So they flew me from Kauai to Hawaii or to the Honolulu, which by the way, just that little two-person plane flying me 90 miles over to there, $12,000.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that crazy? Okay, so anyway, in the hospital, they couldn't find out what was going on with me. I was there actually for about a month and a half, almost 2 months. And they finally had to do a biopsy and they found out it was something called valley fever. It wasn't cancer. It's only something you can get in parts of California, parts of Arizona, parts of Mexico. It's a little spore that lies dormant in the ground. And when it dries out and the wind comes up, that spore gets in the air. You could be driving down Interstate 5, just going through California, that little spore gets in you and it starts to grow like cancer does in your lungs.
Okay.
When it's fatal a lot of times for people over 60 because they can't, just like COVID, you know, you
the immune system
can't fight it off. Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm laying there in the hospital bed and I'm, again, I'm a very spiritual, I'm thinking, okay, why am I going through all this? And all of a sudden, I remember reading Journey of Souls back in 1995. It just came to my mind. I went, oh, wow. And I remember calling up the Newton's secretary or something, and there's a 4-year waiting list. So I'm 23 and I'm going, heck,
Oh
I'm
my
not
goodness.
4 years,
Yeah, wow.
right? So I completely forgot about the book. And then I started thinking, I'm just laying there, got nothing to do,
Might as well listen to it again and see what springs up.
Well, I just thought, I remembered the book enough to where I went, if I get out of here, that's what I want to do. If I get out of here, if I don't die,
You want to do the Journey of
that.
Souls. You want
So
to do what
then-
was going on in the Journey of
Yes,
Souls book. Oh,
yeah.
that's incredible.
So here's what happened though. I was broke. I didn't have any money. And it just so happened that the training they were doing when I got out of the hospital, the training was 1 month from now, 50 miles from where I live. It could have been anywhere in the world where could they do the training. So I figured, okay, I don't have to get airplane and stuff. I can drive there. I can sleep in my van or something,
Right.
whatever. And, but I didn't have all the money. So I wrote to them, I says, I really want to do this. We take payments. And they saw that I was really serious about this. They says, okay, they called me back and says, we have a donor that's going to volunteer to pay half your tuition. So,
That's
I
amazing.
managed, I had borrowed some money. I went to the training and it was just, it's this, again, this inner guidance. I just knew because I decided to do that. What's the odds of it being right here? They have a donor for me. I said, I got to do this. This is something I meant to do.
So basically, what you went through with the spore and Hawaii and everything was meant to bring you down, reground you, regroup you, and put you on a new path.
Yes, just like when you were explaining your situation, we're brothers there. It's like you would hear now if those things hadn't happened to you.
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of so I've trusted, and so here's the kicker though too. So I'm in training. There's 13 of us there. We're at a Catholic monastery where we had this, which was pretty cool. And so about the 4th day, they said, okay, all you therapists now, tomorrow, you're going to go through this process yourself and you're going to go to the afterlife. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And oh my gosh. And now fear has come up in me because at hypnotherapy school, I was the last guy in the class to experience hypnosis. I kept volunteering and volunteering and volunteering and nothing and nothing and nothing. I wasn't one of the easy ones, so I'm thinking, okay, what if it doesn't happen?
Yeah. What if it doesn't work for you? Right.
I thought, yeah, for me, but I knew I had to experience it because I'm going to help other people experience it, So here we go. We go in there and my left brain, my analytical side, I couldn't shut it down, and the fear was there. And so we go back the next day. Everybody else had these miraculous experiences in the afterlife, and I was the only one that didn't. So they kind of looked at me and said, Regan, out of your head, into your heart, out of your head, into your heart.
Yes, out of your head and into your heart.
Yeah, 4 days later, I worked on that. 4 days later, I had
Wait, Regan, how did you work on that? How did you get out of your mind and into your heart?
Part of it was like calming, part of it was seeing all these other people have these beautiful experiences. So my mind is saying, okay, this is really real. This is, this is not a pretend thing, because everybody but me.
So stop the analytical overthinking mind.
Like, oh, this isn't possible.
Sure. Okay.
The other part was someone there helped me do some tapping on some self-love and some of my growing up, not being I wasn't nurtured as a child a little bit because my loving mother didn't know how to show that because she was never taught. Okay. Sure. So there wasn't a lot of that. And so anyway, I don't know if that helped or whatever, and then I did it. And then they gave me a mind technique where I pictured my analytical self. Now I'm seeing that guy, that analytical part. He's got dark black glasses on. He's got pocket protectors and a white shirt, and he can't wait to get in and do stuff on the computer and whatever. So in my mind, I talked to my analytical self, and I says, "Okay, bud, you really helped me, and you really helped me in my life. But it's time for you to take a little break." And he says, "What I've done, go down this hallway here, and there's a break room. You can have sandwiches and stuff. There's a computer, do stuff, and I'm going on another way, and I'll see you after a while. So I pictured him walking down the hall and going into that room, and then I went, okay, just get him out here for a minute, you know.
Sure,
So
sure.
I don't know if
That's
that helped or
great.
not, but
Is
I
that
got to a
also,
past life.
could that also be like an ego? Like like just an ego
Yeah,
with, yeah, okay.
well, it could be the part of me that just wants to know why is this, why is this, why is that, how's this working? Oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Instead of just relaxing, like you're
Letting
gonna
go.
go to sleep. Yeah, and that's what I had to do. And I got to the past life. So because in this process, you're totally aware that you're going through the process, but something happens where your consciousness shifts into two of you. So part of me is totally in that past life, experiencing all that. And the other part of me is knowing that the facilitators are talking to me. It's the most interesting thing. Um, when I got to the past life, I started crying because I was killing people, you know, for Caesar. You know, I was putting people on, I was crucifying people. And I remember feeling, I guess now when I say that, it brings back, I can feel this horse. It was it was a white horse, and I was going up and down, and there were people on crosses all over. And I remember thinking in my mind, this is my job, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do. These people are nuts. You know,
Yeah.
they're kooks. They're some kind of crazy cult.
Yeah, and if you don't listen to them, they're gonna crucify you. So
Or something.
yeah.
But then it went to my death scene. So
Mhm.
now I'm in trance, but I'm crying because the Regan now would never do something like that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
That was me in another lifetime when I didn't have the awareness that I have now. So on my deathbed, my daughter, I can see her. She had this long hair down to her waist, almost straight, long brown hair. She looked like she's in her mid-30s. I felt like I was in my 70s. And I'm on this table. She's standing there holding my hand. And I swear to her that if I'm ever alive again, I will never do something that I know is wrong just because somebody's trying to make me do it. Or like they say, it's my job. So on my deathbed, that was a big lesson to learn in that lifetime, you know. And I think that's why in this lifetime, I've kind of bucked society. Got like, no, I'm not, they're telling me to do it. I'm not doing it because they're telling me to do it. You know, I try to make sure of that. But then I pass away. My facilitator says, okay, turn around and who's there to take you home? And I was just in the black. And I'm thinking in my mind, now my analytical side comes back and he goes, oh, shoot, Regan, at least you got the past life thing, but you're not even going to be able to do this other thing. But the facilitator had a trainer with him, and the trainer was well knowledgeable in this and says, just let him stay in the black for a while. Because it appears that the way I can describe it is when you pass away, some people go right to the afterlife, and some people take their time and go through like kind of what we call the black, like a little no man's land, and then they're on the other side, you know. So he let me just float around, and he said, just if you see any light anywhere, just tell me. So I'm just, yeah, I'm looking, and all of a sudden I saw a pinpoint of red way in the distance, just a little, like the size of a pea. And the facilitator says, well, just kind of float over to where that red is. And when I did, in a nanosecond, I was out on the other side, and there was my guide, Rebazar. And then I had that magnificent, wonderful experience of spending time over there. But now what would link to what our conversation is and where I started to talk to you about this is at the end of my session, the best thing happened to me of the whole session. He asked me, okay, I'm above the earth. I'm looking down, and from space, Earth, it's so beautiful. It's just this ball of floating energy, and it's so beautiful. And all of a sudden, I'm not there. I'm standing on a cliff. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, this is the same cliff I was standing on when I had a dream about 40 years ago that ended with me standing on this cliff, and it like the pause button went on at that time. I was running up this mountain. There was something chasing me, was going to kill me. A bunch of us people were running up, and this monster was chasing us, killing everybody, devouring them. And I'm running up, and I get to the top of this cliff, and there's nowhere to go. And then I realized I'm dead. You know, this in this dream that I was having, I'm toast. And I look down, and out of this, this sounds so silly the way things work, but there's clouds, and up comes it's like a Pillsbury Doughboy hand, you know, real friendly hand coming up. And I realized I could jump to it to safety. But then something in me says, no, I think this is about me facing a fear. I'm going to turn. And I went, all of a sudden I had says, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to face this monster, you know.
Uh-huh.
And as I did that, pause, I woke up like this. I shook my wife awake and I go, whoa, I think I just passed some kind of test or something about facing my fears. And
Wow.
it was the first dream I ever wrote down. So here I am 40 something years later, coming back from heaven. And all of a sudden I'm on that cliff again. And it's like someone unpaused it, you know. And so I'm standing on the cliff and I tell the facilitator, oh, here's the hand coming up again. And the facilitator says, well, jump to safety. And I said, no, I'm in trance, but I'm going to turn around and face it.
Mhm.
And I turned around and Lino, 2 inches from my face was a man smiling at me. And
Interesting.
he whispers in my ear, he says, I forgive you. And he hugged me. And then I looked behind him, and all the way down the mountain were people lined up to come up and say the same thing. They say, I forgive you. I love you.
Wow.
Tears coming down my eyes. I felt like, and the thing that got me is it's getting me emotional now. The very last one was this little like 9-year-old girl with long, I wonder if that was my daughter in that other life now that I think, because she had this long brown hair, but she was 9 years old, had these loving eyes, and I'm in trance, but I'm aware that this is going on. So part of me is thinking, what did I do to this little girl that I need to be forgiven for? And I started crying my eyes out like, oh my God. And she gives me the most beautiful hug and says, I love you. I forgive you. You know,
Wow, Regan.
boom, I was back in space. And then Rebazar, my guide, was there. And I was telling him how beautiful the earth is. And I started getting closer. And all of a sudden, I started feeling all this emotional pain. And he stops me and he says, Regan, what you're feeling is you're becoming more of an empath now. And what you're beginning to do, you're beginning to feel some of the pain of the earth. And I thought at that time, looking down at this beautiful planet, how many people are going through horrible, horrible things at this
Oh,
very moment,
yes.
and how much sorrow, you know, how much anger, how much thing is going on. So he looks at me and he says, are you sure you want to do this? And I knew he meant this work,
Right.
this Michael Newton work. And I said, I think I said the F word. I said, yes. So I was like, oh, what did I do that for? And he says, okay, if you're going to do this work, I want you to do 4 things. There's 4 things you must do, or your physical body won't be able to handle the energy and you will die. So I said, okay, let's just talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so the 4 things he told me, this will help some of your listeners too, because I think this is how we all should kind of be.
Uh-huh.
The first thing he says to do is as you wake up in the morning, declare yourself as the vehicle for spirit. And I heard a little prayer in my mind. It says, as I wake up, bless this day and those that I serve, as I keep 1 foot in heaven and 1 foot planted firmly on earth to accomplish my mission. And I thought, wow,
Could
that's a
you
good thing.
repeat that? I'm sorry, Regan. You cut off
Yeah.
a little bit. Your service cut a little bit. What I heard was bless this day. Can you continue from there?
Yeah. And those I serve,
Mm-hmm.
as I keep 1 foot in heaven and 1 foot planted firmly on earth
That's beautiful.
to accomplish my mission. So what it's doing is just saying, like, and we should every day, you know, we've seen in our research now, everybody has a guide, everybody has somebody watching over them. Okay. That makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable a little bit, but from the spiritual sense, it's the most beautiful thing you could imagine. You know, we all have people watching us.
Hey Regan, I'm understanding from being spiritual myself and meditating. I've seen myself. I have several spirit guides. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not just one. I mean, so could you confirm that?
Well, sure. Yeah. Some people have multiple guides and which was great because just a session that I had just recently, a few weeks ago, when she sees herself pass away, she turns around, there's a guide there. And we said, are you, this guide was, oh gosh, kind of lovingly stern kind of looking, you know? And we said, are you the guide? And he says, I'm one of them, you know. And as it showed during this thing that he handled one part of her session. And then there was another guide that came in that was helping her with another aspect of her life.
Yes.
And then there was the council you know, because when everybody gets to go to their side, that's one thing everybody gets to do is go before the council and get their questions answered about
And
their life.
this council
And
is
so
like a
it's like a
soul family. A council is composed of like spirit team or soul family. What's a council?
well, usually the guides and everybody's had a unique. Everybody is. It's not like the same council every time. You know, it's always different.
Right,
Uh,
because it's
different.
unique to the individual.
Yeah, because there seems to be that we're so unique as souls, and everybody it just seems like the right counsel shows up for the right people. And they'll answer any questions you have, even about your life, your love life. Um, Sometimes you won't get the answer you want to hear, and
Sure.
sometimes they'll say we can't tell you because part of your growth is to figure it out. But a lot of times they will, actually just tell you. For instance, I had a client of mine. She would have panic attacks before going into work. Once or twice a week, and that's when a certain doctor was going to be on rotation, and he was very cruel to her, always cruel to her, and she had never even had a conversation. He was just cruel for no reason, and it would always be out of sight of people, so she couldn't report to human resources or anything like that. And she just says, when he's there, I'm just scared because I don't know, he's going to be cruel to me for some reason. Her first question to the council over there is, why is this doctor so cruel to me? They said one sentence to her, and then they moved on. They said, you were very cruel to him in another lifetime.
Hmm.
And she's in trance and she goes, I don't want to hear that. Don't want to hear that. Like this. When she came out of trance and we talked about it, she says, I know they told me that, but I'm a nice person. I would never be cruel like he's being cruel to me in that. And I explained to her, I said, we weren't always, we've been through a learning process. We're, sometimes most of us are cruel before we're loving and kind.
Sure.
And so I checked with her about 6 months later. I said, what's going on? And she says, ever since I had that session, I mean, I never said a thing to him. I never did anything myself, but it's like I don't even exist to him. He doesn't talk to me. He says everything's fine, you know. And I think something happened energetically when she realized, that she was getting payback for that. I think that was the end of it. She realized, you know what? I was mean to him. He was mean to me. And now, as long as I'm not mean to him, maybe we can bury the hatchet here.
Yeah. So once again, almost like the whole the lesson of forgiveness, such as the way that you experienced it, which is really quite beautiful coming to that realization. So Regan, so let's go back to your having your afterlife experience. You've been forgiven, or you're now starting to I mean, how did you wake up from that?
Oh, okay. So when I came out of it, I was surprised. It really surprised me how emotional that I got at different parts, because I usually, as a guy, don't show emotions that well, or I'm not comfortable around especially around other men being vulnerable, that kind of thing. I had kind of learned, like in my book, I talk about some men's things that I went through that kind of opened me up, where it kind of broke my rough shell so that I could learn to be emotional in that. And that's another story, but which is interesting. But so coming out of it, the first thing I thought is, I did it. Oh my God, I did it. I did it. I did it. I had the experience. And I was kind of ecstatic about that. Part of me was disappointed a bit for the first 2 or 3 hours, because physics wasn't like I thought it was going to be over there. Like in my mind, I had an idea, and reading all these stories, I made up in my mind what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like over there. For me, it was more energetic, more than physical. Like my guide, it was like he was just a few feet from me, but it was like some cellophane was between him and I. He wasn't like I'm seeing you now crystal clear. And I know I'm going to do something with my camera here. Sometimes it gets out of focus, and then I don't know. Anyway, okay. So when I really started thinking about it, as I was going to sleep a few hours later, that's when I went, wow, wow. And as the weeks went by, more and more for months, the wow got bigger and bigger and bigger, because I started realizing all of these little things, and I started feeling different inside. And what I would say, when people decide to have this, anybody listening wants to go through the experience, the number one thing I think it does for everybody is it kind of takes your rough edges and kind of smooths them, and you find yourself being a little more tolerant of people, a little more kind. On the 4 things. Okay, the first thing was to declare yourself, when he says,
Oh, that's
do
right.
4 things.
What you wake up and declare yourself as the vehicle of spirit.
Right. You know, that you're going to put more pluses, more
Yes.
pluses on the board. You know, we always put a few minuses. Somehow we're human.
Sure.
But you're going to put more pluses on the board during the day. The second thing he said was to spend more time in nature. And
Yeah. Oh,
now
I
here's
love this.
what's interesting. What he was showing me as he's saying this in my mind, I'm seeing an hourglass. And you know how sand's in the top, it goes down to the bottom.
Yes.
So when he's saying you got to do these 4 things or you'll die, all of a sudden I'm seeing myself seeing like I'm seeing myself seeing a lot of clients, and the sand keeps piling up, nothing's going down to the bottom. And I realize if it gets to the top, sayonara, you know. So when he's telling me to wake up and do that, all of a sudden I saw sand going down to the bottom. Okay. The second thing he says, spend more time in nature. And I pictured myself walking in the woods. He said that's God's gift to us to kind of balance us out. And people have that inner sense of that. That's why people
Yes.
flock to parks. Well, they flock to the oceans and
I
stuff, and
sure
they
do.
walk on the beach, right?
Oh yeah, I sure do. Yeah.
It's an inner knowing that we have to get there too, because we have to balance ourselves out. So the third thing he said was do as many random acts of kindness as you can. And I saw myself at a 7-Eleven store. Some guy dropped a candy wrapper on the ground and I picked it up, put it in the trash. It was
I
a
love
simple
it.
thing. And I saw sand going down to the bottom.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was getting a visual. It was so cool. So I had this visual, so it would really stick with me in my mind. And the fourth thing he said was talk to other therapists and find out how they ground themselves. That's a practical thing, because as in your with what you do, we hear so much crud, so much stuff that we have to find a way to not let
Oh,
it
yeah.
touch us. We have to wait, let it go through. So I've not been perfect on that, but I've been pretty good at that.
So then
And
you heard that was your guide telling you this, correct?
Yeah, he said, do
So
those 4 things, you'll be okay.
you'll be okay. You'll be okay, and then what?
Well, I'd be okay when I'm doing this work of having people go to the afterlife and back and not harming my physical body, you know,
Okay.
that way. So it was
This is
just a way.
what's going to protect your energy.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I felt like recently I was down in Los Angeles, and because I do sessions down in LA about 3 or 4 times a year,
Mhm.
and so I bunched too many. I did like 8 sessions in like 10 days. On the 8th session, when I walked out of it, I got in my car. I couldn't navigate. Even I went on Google, I couldn't even follow the Google navigation. I was going around in circles, and I realized, man, I'm just spaced out.
Yeah, burned out.
Yeah, I was burned out. I was ecstatic because they were wonderful sessions, but I was as a vehicle, I couldn't function. So I slept for a couple hours and I felt pretty good. And I says, okay, I'm going to go to In-N-Out Burger and
Sure.
have a cheeseburger and a shake. That'll ground me.
Yeah.
So I made a few wrong turns, even watched something. I got there, I sat in my van, I had that, and I did a little meditation, and I says, okay. And I'm remembering what he told me, about pacing myself, and I went, okay, okay. And then just what really made that true is that, so a week later, I'm back in San Francisco area doing a session, and all of a sudden my client says, my guide wants to talk to you, Regan. And I said, ooh, and that all of a sudden I'm getting goosebumps, like, oh man, this guide from the other side wants to talk through my client to me.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and so I said, okay, what's he wants to say? He said, slow down, Regan, slow down. And I went, okay, okay, I know that, but just slow down. And then here I go to I gave a talk at a soul search thing, which is in, oh gosh, it was in LA. It was right by the airport. I'm trying to think what city it was in. Anyway, I'm giving a talk about this, and there's a medium that's given a talk before my talk. So I go into part of her. I just walk in and I sit down right in the middle of it that way. She's talking about something else. She looks right over at me and she says, "Sir, you need to slow down." It was
Yep.
like
There's another message right there.
someone told me to tell you to slow down. So I'm in a pretty good place right now where I'm not booking too much.
Good, good.
Uh,
Yeah.
that way. So it's a learning process. But see, that's the thing, like you found out when we start connecting to the other side,
Yeah.
there's all this love that you get. There's all this help.
Yeah.
It says
Yeah.
it makes like you get roadblocks in your life, but you're able to navigate through them without so much damage and to learn the lessons you need to learn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
In letting go and trusting.
Yes. And I'm you would have thought I would have learned years and years ago, since I've been on this spiritual walk for what, I'm almost 75 now. So a
That's okay. I mean, we're constantly
lot of
learning.
years, but it's always learning, man,
Yeah,
always learning.
definitely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Regan,
So
so now you're in the part of your life where you're helping people. So it's through the way that you get people into the afterlife. Now I have a question. Why is it called afterlife and not before life?
oh, that would be a good. Actually, it's a good title of a book. It says "Back to the Before Life." Oh my
Sure.
God, I got to
Yeah,
write that
yeah,
down. I'm
write it
thinking of
down. I
writing
mean, maybe
another word.
that's a message for you, you
Oh my
know?
gosh, because there's so many things about the afterlife. What about the before life?
Right,
Because what we found out is you found out, we're in a sense dreaming here. You know, our
right.
um, when we decided, like when I decided to be Regan, I didn't put all of my soul into Regan. I kept about half of myself back home, just like you kept half. So everybody has their higher selves, which we found out are on the other side. That's why one of the highlights of a life between life session is when you get to have conversations with people that are still alive in your life now. You're
Right.
talking to their higher selves. I had a couple come to me for couples counseling because
Wait,
they
could you
were
repeat that again
okay.
about talking to people with talking to their higher selves?
When you're on the other
First
side,
off, first off, for people that are not familiar, what is a higher self?
okay, the higher self is back home. In other words, we're created over there. We're not created in the womb here. We're already created on the other side, and we're coming down to have experience. So we decide this here. So when we're planning a life and everything, we try to decide how difficult that life will be for the lessons we want to learn. And we decide what percentage of our soul self we're going to put into that body. And the rest we keep back home. When we ask that question, when people are doing this, it's usually about 50 or 60%, something like that.
Mhm.
Sometimes they bit off, they're wishing that they had more of their soul self, but they kind of usually just have to do the best they can, with that. So what that means is, when you're on the other side, you can talk to people that have passed on, which is really great for people that have lost loved ones, and you can say hi for a little bit or talk conversation. But not only that, is you can talk to the higher selves of people that are still alive in your life. So I've
Okay.
had, like, for instance, husbands can talk to wives' higher selves, and they can say, "Okay, sweetheart, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Is there something your lower self would like to tell me?" I mean, it's so cool. So this couple that came to me, they've been in couples therapy, and they were like this, and the therapist was stuck because they were so stuck in their ways they could not move on. But they loved each other. They wanted to save the relationship.
Mhm.
And the therapist says, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you to Regan, and maybe you can get this from a different perspective." So one day I had her go to the other side. She talked to his higher self about their issues. The next day, he went and talked to her higher self about the issues. And then the third day, we met together like a couples counseling and talked it out. And the way they looked at each other was something, because they realized, okay, we got to stop this. We got to stop this. We both have work to do on ourselves. Okay, and we can save this relationship. So it was a way of kind of just going to the core, finding out what the issues are. And when they experienced their higher selves, they realized that they had planned to come down to be divine sandpaper for each other, to
Oh,
wake each other up. So why are they wanting to slay the messenger? Right?
right. So
They,
that's why they were in so much distress and so much friction and resistance because there was a lesson to learn there.
yeah. So yeah, that was good. So
You know,
it's
before we continue, Regan, with talking
yeah,
about, what we can, because I have some questions about, the afterlife or the before life. I mean, some of the questions that I have, what are some good questions to ask before going into that meditative world? What type of dimension is it? And can somebody, and my answer personally is yes, but I just want to know on your perspective,
okay.
without having a facilitator or having a hypnosis or a therapist or psychologist or anybody to get you there, are you able to give people the tools to do this practice alone themselves through their own
Um,
meditation, through their own breathing exercises, through their own belief system, and changing their destiny and their fate because of their belief system and their structure changing?
I think, a few people have written books that have found a way just on their own to kind of have these experiences and
Sure.
wrote books about their experience on the other side. So far, we haven't found a process, because what happens when people try to do it on their own is most of the time they just fall asleep. Because if I'm given a scientific explanation of this, right now, we're in a beta state,
Yeah.
and you begin to relax. Now, people have heard, almost everybody knows about alpha waves, beta waves, theta waves,
Theta
delta.
waves.
It's pretty
Yeah.
much common knowledge now. And like right now, as we're speaking, our brain waves are really close together. As you begin to relax, and then the waves kind of spread apart a little bit, and then some alpha waves come in, and then some theta waves, and then you're just out of delta. So in our process, what we do is we get people to the theta wave state, where if we weren't talking to them, they would just fall asleep. But because we're communicating, we keep them in that theta state. Okay.
Okay.
And sometimes people do fall asleep, and I just tap them on the hand, bring them
Sure.
back a little bit to keep them in that state. So when you're trying to do it on your own, it's very difficult to keep yourself from just
Yeah, because the
falling
theta
asleep,
state
from
is so
getting in
sedating.
that zone. What happens though, yeah, that's why some people have the experience in the dream state. They would wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, I just had this. I really think I was in this past life because it was so real," and boom, boom, and they'll write it down or something, because you can slip into it that way. Now, I'm not advocating drugs or anything like that, but what I've been told on the other side, for some people, they're not against somebody doing ayahuasca, or if they're doing it for a spiritual purpose, not just for
Yeah, with
recreation.
the spiritual, loving, divine intention.
Right. And because I've had a number of people that have come to me that have done these ayahuasca ceremonies, and they had these miraculous experiences. Although for a lot of them, they're tired of throwing up for hours,
Yeah.
because so much is purged from the body and that.
Sure, sure.
Some people have done DMT,
Yeah.
but those experiences generally are flashes, like sometimes 30 seconds or a minute, but it breaks the veil, and part of them sees something that's beyond here. Okay.
Sure.
So that gets them to search more. So this last person I had, he actually awakened through mushrooms, through what I would say, he had people with him. And the experience was for spiritual, wasn't just to get high, but it was to try to have something spiritually happen. And that
Sure,
did
sure.
well with him. But now they told him, they said, since now you've woken up a lot, they said, just watch, you probably don't need to be doing them that much anymore, because the purpose
Okay,
was to
good.
wake you up. And now that you're here, you don't
Yeah.
need that anymore, because the negative side could cause, different stuff.
Oh, they
So,
can.
but this way, what's nice about it is this
Yeah, you're
process.
bypassing all those other chemicals and the things that people are using, and you're getting
Yeah,
rid of those side effects and all the unwanted physical feelings, and kind of just going into the meditative theta wave brainwave state.
yeah,
That's
this
the
is done in a
safest place and
natural,
the safest way to do it.
safe way, and it's done in a very scientific way, because as researchers, we keep them on
Awake.
point, because we have a whole list of who they want to talk to, what questions they want to have answered, and what they want to accomplish in their session.
Sure.
So because you're like a kid in a candy store over there, you just happenstance, blah, blah, blah. But when I have to bring them back sometimes, I'll say, okay, now, look, Lino, you wanted to do this. Now let's get back on track here. And oh yeah, okay. And so we want to get that whole, it's like getting work done, in a sense.
So what's the difference, because after the way that you're describing the afterlife or the before life, or in this theta wave state, this meditative state where you're able to talk to your higher self or your spirit guides or people on the other side, it feels very much like a dream state. Is there a difference between when you're actually asleep dreaming versus this theta wave hypnotic state, and going in with the intention with questions? Because I'm just thinking, like, theoretically, I could write down questions and ask my higher self to answer specific questions in my dream state, and wake up with the felt sense and write down what I feel and what I observe and see. And wouldn't I be able to get similar messages?
Yes, you can. Remember, Neil Diamond Walsh, wrote, Conversations with God. That's how his awakening happened, is he would ask questions to God, and he would just write. He would get these things. That's the higher self talking. Some people are evolved enough in that state where they can get the same answers by doing automatic writing or something. In other words, just getting yourself relaxed and just start opening your heart to God and just ask questions. And you have to trust the answers that you're getting in your mind. So
Yeah.
that's why people say, well, before I judge it, I'm just writing it down. And that's one way of doing that. Mediums, they're a step ahead of us in a bit. They could be wide, just like right now, medium. If I was a medium, I could be saying, oh my gosh, Lino, here's somebody who wants to talk, your brother or something, who wants
Sure.
to talk to you. And I don't even need to be in that
Right, in that because we're able to go
for
into
the
that
most of
state,
us.
yeah, and
Need to
trust it.
kind of get in that state. And I want to tell people too that because people say, oh, I can't be hypnotized. Oh, being in trance, that sounds so foreign.
Sure.
It's a natural state that our body has all the time.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, you're in trance at least 2 times a day. One is just as you're waking up, and one is right as
Before
you're
you go
going
to
to sleep.
sleep.
That's when the brain waves are right there. That's when some people get their ideas for things. It's
Yeah.
just upon awakening. And they'll go, oh my God, that's it. That's it. My
Yeah.
answer to my question. Because they were in that state where you can
Right.
access, more information that way.
Thank you for that. And so now that you've had many clients that are able to go into their afterlife, into that theta state, what are some of the common things that they hear, that they see? What is something that you see that's common between a lot of your clients?
Okay, I got 3 things that just came to mind real quick.
Okay.
One is we all need to practice more self-love. Okay, they say the 2 things that keep people from progressing spiritually, 2 things: fear and lack of self-love.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they want people to say, just to start realizing that they're perfectly imperfect. In other
Yeah.
words, don't go for the perfection thing because it ain't gonna happen
Right.
while you're down here. That you're perfectly imperfect, that you're loved beyond your understanding of love. Even you're loved so much. They want people to know that they're never alone. In other words, there's a team up there kind of rooting for you
Mhm.
that way. Another thing is people, when I'm on the other side, one question, I don't tell them the answer. I said, ask them over there for the way your character is, the way your personality now
Sure.
is. What's the best spiritual practice? Every time so far, they've said meditation. Okay.
Mhm.
They said meditation is God's gift to us to help us to connect to the other side. It's
Mm.
God's gift to us to increase our intuition so we can hear what they're whispering to us. Um, and again, sometimes meditation scares people off, and that's because they don't understand meditation. They just
Mhm.
think they have to spend hours in an ashram in a certain
Mhm.
position and all that for that to happen. You can meditate for 3 minutes a day, and maybe that's all you need.
Right.
You could do walking meditation. All meditation is deciding, you know what, I'm going to slow all this clutter, this clatter that's going around all over me. I'm going to remove myself that for a minute. I'm going to just quiet myself down and kind of listen to myself, or
Mhm.
listen to what's coming in, or I'm just going to relax for a few minutes and have my heart open, think about something that I love. It's the intent that they want to see is that, okay, okay, you guys up there, I'm taking a few minutes here and I'm going to try to walk a step further in my spiritual unfoldment, even if it's for a few minutes. There's a great app. Now there's some good apps on that you might know better.
There are some excellent apps on meditation. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. One of them I use is Insight Timer.
Insight Timer, I've
Insight
heard of it.
Timer.
Yeah.
It's a good one. And what people do, they say, well, I got to get to work in an hour. I don't have an hour to sit and meditate. Well, you go on there and it'll say, how much time do you have? Oh, I got 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And you plug in 15 minutes, and then everything that's 15 minutes comes up. And there's
Mm.
hundreds of things.
Yeah.
There's guided meditations, there's music with binaural beats, which helps to relax the mind and everything. And there's spirit talks on different subjects with some of the best spiritual people in the country, all kinds of things. That's a good app.
Regan,
Uh,
so going back to the 3 things that came to you, the people that
yeah,
the most common things that they experience in the afterlife or when they're in that theta state is that to basically understand that they're imperfectly perfect or perfectly imperfect, that they're loved beyond understanding of love, and that meditation is God's gift to increase our intuition. Have you felt that your intuition has increased since doing what you're doing right now?
I think it's increasing more all the time. I had a podcast I did with a medium for 3 years, and she was a very talented medium from Seattle, and that was good for me to do because I learned a lot about mediums because I had a lot of preconceived ideas,
Sure.
and that I finally got understanding of what it is. And she would always tell me, she says, Regan, you're more, intuitive than you think. Because
Mhm.
part of my mind goes, no, I'm not like you. I can't just do this kind of thing. She says, no, you really have these abilities. You just have to realize that almost everybody has some of these abilities. And if they put some attention on it, these abilities can get better. There's there's schools, little psychic colleges, they call them, around the country, where they teach people how to fine tune those little abilities they have. I think one's a psychic institute in Berkeley or something, which is just across from San Francisco here. And I've had a few people I've done sessions for there that graduated, and now they're doing readings for people on that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
I love it.
yeah, we all have everybody has the one where the phone rings, they're thinking about somebody, and then the phone rings and they go, I was
Sure.
just thinking about you.
Yeah.
That's kind of your 101 psychic abilities where, we have that, or,
But is
whatever.
that a psychic ability, or is that just a universal connection that we all have, and an energetic pool that we're all gravitated to naturally?
Well, I think it is natural for us to be in tune with the whole, it's just
Mm.
that we've separated ourselves from that and having to kind of come back to realize that our natural state. Like, I think a lot of
Right.
spiritual teachers and that tell us that all the all the answers and everything are already here. We already
Yes.
kind of know them. We're just coming back to awakening to the fact
Yes.
that we have these abilities, right? Whether
Right.
we know stuff. But before I forget now too, I want to tell you, when people ask over there, they'll say, okay, here I am. Tell me what the one religion is, and I'm going to go follow it. And
Really?
they they'll say, well, if you feel you need a religion, then choose one. It might be good for you. But they'll say the one true religion is love and kindness,
Mm-hmm.
wherever you find it. And so,
Right.
in other words, they're just saying, because I think a lot of us, for our missions, like for me to understand and me to be in this mission, I had to grow up as a Catholic boy all the way through high school,
So did I. Yeah.
perspective, because that gave me one perspective. I didn't even know about reincarnation until I went to college. Then I heard the first. And so I went, reincarnation, living another thing. I never heard that before. I didn't even know too much about Protestants, you know,
Yeah.
it was all Catholic stuff. So having that experience got me to be curious, about these other things. And so curious that I, would take comparative religion classes, and I started reading all the different holy books and things and trying to find what's going on. And I found there's a commonality between all of them when it gets down to love. But it
Yeah.
seems to me that us human beings, we take that commonality and we have to find something that we have that someone else doesn't have, or we we want to start controlling it or using it for power or something, and it kind of ruins
Right.
the teach. So I could have had bad luck with being in a very fundamental Christian church where, things got kind of out of hand. And I say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, just go with the essence of what Jesus is teaching, and you'll be okay.
Right.
And which brings me to, when I have Christians that come to me, I make sure that and so far, every single one that wanted to have an audience with Jesus has been able to do that. And sometimes they have tears coming down their eyes. I mean, they're just, the love that they feel. It's just like he's just holding space for them,
Yeah.
and they just can feel that. One time, as that's happening, this was a 70-year-old woman who was Catholic, beautiful spirit, and everything. She's talking to Jesus, and then Mother Mary shows up out of the blue. And pretty soon, Jesus is off to the side, and she's talking to Mother Mary about child raising, about difficult with children and stuff. And they're having this whole conversation, and Jesus is just standing there listening to him talk. And she said it was so neat because at that time she had an issue with her daughter. They were estranged, and Mother Mary says, you need to just listen to her. Don't try to preach to her being a mom. She says, your daughter just wants you to listen to her.
Yes.
And a few months after this, it was so good to hear. She calls me. She says, look, my daughter came and she started talking about stuff. And I have this, I want to solve her problem and stuff. And I just shut up and I just
Yeah.
listened to her. And she said, I can't tell you how much healing my daughter and I've had since I got that wisdom from
Oh,
Mother
how
Mary.
wonderful to be getting that with divine wisdom. I mean, absolutely. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful path. And so what other types of questions? I know we're running out of time here, but what are some types of questions that we can ask when we go into this theta wave past life or afterlife experience?
Um, well, of course, we ask the main questions all the time, and that's about, we want people to get clarity on their mission. We want to find out, are they on task, or have they kind of gotten off the road a bit? Do they need to kind of step it up a little bit? And then how many lives have they lived before? What's their degree of spiritual development? Are they beginning, intermediate, or advanced? But most people, the questions they ask usually has to do about, why is blah, blah, blah so hard for me? Why can't I get along with my son? You know, you know, and when that happens, they get some insight into their relationships about what they're supposed to learn from this difficulty. You know, in other words, what can they do? And then usually we transition going to the soul group, where the souls that they normally incarnate are with, and usually that's where they'll find their kids and their husband and everybody. And then they can, when they've learned something from the council, they can go there and say, boy, I see this is why we decided to come down, and I'm your mother and you're my son. And oh boy, what can we do about it? And I had one client that actually was having health reasons. We found out over there that his health reasons were caused because of the hatred he had for his father. Okay.
Sure.
So then I said, we got to the soul group, and I said, you see your father there? And he goes, yep, he's over there. And I said, let's go have a conversation. He goes, he's in trance, and he didn't want to, and I said, look, you're never going to find a better place to talk to your father, because he's going to be in his best self. It's his higher self to talk.
Self. Yeah.
He finally agreed to. So they went over, they talked about their differences and stuff, and it was very hard for him, but he did. He felt good about that. So I says, okay, before you stop talking to him, I don't know if you're going to enter his energy, or if you're seeing a physical, do a handshake and say that you're going to work on stuff. So he did that. And so that was a big step for him, is at least on the other side, he was able to confront his father about some of the
Oh yeah,
things
that's incredible.
that hated him for, able to talk about it from soul to soul, rather from this humanist where you have all this bad history coming in,
Oh yeah, definitely.
that
All
way.
these blocks and stuff.
So yeah, there's a lot of things. On another show, if we do, I want to tell you about we can talk about the 6 stations we've identified over there, and go into detail about the 6 different stations over there. And we're finding out more and more all the time. When Michael Newton passed away, before he passed away, he started the Institute so we could carry on his work. And he says, look, here's what I found. Here's what I found so far, but don't get stuck into this is all there is. He says, keep asking questions, keep delving deeper into that. And a lot has been happening lately, and we're getting together in Barcelona in November. But there'll probably be about 100 of us in person. There'll probably be about 100 online at least. And we're talking about all these new things that we're discovering and finding, and that. And one of the big thing is we're getting a lot of past lives where they're off planet. They're on other planets.
Oh yeah, sure.
Other life forms, other dimensions. And it's coming up about 30% of the time now. So we're getting a bigger picture of that life is all, not just Earth. Life is one school, but there are many schools, universes out there.
It's universal, quite literally.
We're starting to get some understanding by starting now to ask different questions, so we can see, what are these worlds like? What are these life forms like? What is it different, that way? So, and I've been having those. We could talk an hour on that, of some of my people that find themselves as aliens and find themselves as other life forms.
I'm sure of it. Oh yeah. It's fascinating. It's really incredible. And so I have a question here. Your book is called 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. Why 333?
Well, it wasn't exactly that amount of time, but it was close to it. And so I picked that numerically because 333 has always been for some reason, a number that I feel close to. And I know there's a whole study. You may have had people on your show that talk about why certain numbers show up, because mathematically they have a correlation spiritually. A lot of things like my numbers now, 111 or 1111 is shown up way more than coincidence would ever be when I'm at a crossroads or something, and I'm wondering if I'm going in the right direction. And sometimes I'm all like, oh, and all of a sudden 1111, I'll see it, or it'll show up out of the blue or something. And I go, okay, I'm doing okay. I'm going in the right direction. That's my number that way. So Yeah, I don't know about numerology. I know when I picked my name, I was born with a different name than I have now. And I went to a numerologist back in the 70s to change it. And I changed it to the vibration that would be more, that I would be happier with than the one I had. So yeah, I did, that's what but I know, you could do a whole life study, just like
Oh yeah.
astrology. Some people can do their whole life just learning that. Some people, numerology, they have that study of that.
Right. Right.
I've been kind of a jack of all trades. I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not a lot about one thing,
I
you know.
see. Yeah, because you're fascinated by so many things. I understand. You're curious. Thank you so much, Regan. This has been amazing. I'm a
Oh
poet.
man, this
Earlier you were
by
talking
quick.
about free writing and letting kind of just language pour through you, and that's something that I've been gifted with since I was a little kid. I started writing at
Really?
5. Yeah, I channel poetry. It comes through me quite easily and lovingly. So I wrote a poem, and and this is dedicated to this episode, to your energy.
Okay.
When I'm done with this, I'll ask you where our viewers can find you. So here's the poem. Give me one moment here. As I step between lines in this current life and in times ago, I see that my path has been to discover, rediscover, and uncover the truths of my life's purpose. And in this purpose, as I move forward on purpose, I open the window to those seeking their truths, their missions, their healing, and their wholeness to facilitate a warm welcoming and a peaceful path moving forward in waking life, holding hands with serenity. And that's your
Wow.
energy. Yeah, that's the energy I felt was coming from you. So thank you
Good.
for that
Good poem to be able
inspiration.
to do that. As poetry, I remember being in college and reading poetry books and stuff like this. And I remember I was so unevolved at that point. I just went, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get
Yeah.
it. I don't get it. And then it wasn't until I read some Rumi
Oh, I
poem,
love Rumi. Yeah,
and like he's the most published poet I think in ever. And
probably.
I still, some of his poetry now, if I read, I'm still beyond, it's beyond me. I still haven't evolved to the point where I can get it. But some of the stuff he had was, I wish I memorized the poem, but it's him. He's a wagon. There's a flatbed on the back. He's got a bunch of souls. He's moving forward. He goes over some bumps and a bunch of them fall off into the mud. And he looks back joyfully and says, "Get back on, come on, come on." But the wagon's moving forward, and some souls get up right away and jump right back on. Some run, they're out of breath, they finally get back on, and some are just left in the mud for a long time.
Oh yeah.
But he just said, he's trying to encourage us to, when we fall down in the mud, just get up quick, get up quicker. And that's how I look at like, I know when I'm making progress, when I have an issue that happens and I realize that I got back to my best self a
Right.
lot faster. I get out of the mud a lot quicker, so I don't have to go but a few steps to get back on the wagon again. Where I used to be blocks down where I couldn't, so far out of reach, I couldn't get back on the wagon again. So
Yeah.
then I found, okay, Regan, you're making progress.
Yeah. Get up from the mud, otherwise it will turn into quicksand.
Oh, yeah, or it'll harden and you will never get out of it.
Oh my goodness, that's for sure. Regan Forston, everybody, this has been really incredible. I'm really blessed and feeling really grateful for your energy, your time. And how can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of you? And if they would like to have a session, Life Between Lives session.
Okay, it's real simple. Visit theafterlife.com. So just all together, visit theafterlife.com. And when you go to visit theafterlife.com on there's a lot of information on this in there. You want to click on the Life Between Lives, and there's frequently asked questions on there. There's a lot of videos on there. And if they want to just do something, they want to tiptoe into this and just do a simple past life regression before doing the other thing, then we do that too. And there's some videos on there. And also, on the traditional therapy page, I have all these things about the energy psychology on there, because a lot of us are pretty damaged from this life. And sometimes I've had people go try to go life between lives, and when their guide is there, they stop them and they say, "You're not quite ready to come here yet. You need to You need to deal with some of the issues in your current life. And then they says, come back in a while.
That
And
makes sense.
how long? And whatever time they say, usually we go back and then they have this beautiful experience. But we find out that there's some sort of traumas, some sort of emotion that they haven't dealt with. And I help them through regular traditional therapy. But I also help people stop smoking, lose weight, that's very rare. Most of the time it's most of my clients are women that have had some sort of, it's usually like rape, incest, or violence that has happened to them, and it's just messed their lives up. I've been doing that for like 15 years now, trying to help that, and had a lot of success with people that have traumas. So the good news is, people out there, if you realize if you have some sort of trauma, you'll know, because it's something, if you even close your eyes and think of it, your emotional needle goes over. Okay, that's something that you can deal with. You can get rid of it. You don't have to go through years and years of talking therapy to slowly desensitize yourself. There's this with energy psychology. You get in there and you just distribute that energy, and your issues, those emotional issues, just deflate like air going out of a balloon, and you can have some sort of semblance of normalcy again. And I love helping.
Thank you, Regan. This has been really
that way
enlightening
too. So
and really beautiful.
welcome,
Thank you for
Lino.
connecting.
You're welcome,
Yes.
Lino.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you
on
for
a
your
Little
good
Less
work.
Fear podcast. I really
You're a
appreciate
pleasure
it.
to talk to you. Good host.
Oh, well, thank you. You're a great guest. I appreciate this. Awesome. So much. Let's keep in touch.
Sure. Yeah. If you want me to come back on again, here's some things we could talk about that would be fun. One would be, there's so much about these 6 stations, 7 stations that we've discovered over there. There's the life selection place. There's the library, like we have everything you've ever done.
Oh, the Akashic Records?
Akashic Records, right. There's a place of higher learning over there.
Ooh, love it.
Like when I have artists or musicians, all of a sudden they're in a place to get inspiration for, where they can get inspiration for music, for dance, for all that kind of stuff. And then there's a place of recreation over there where sometimes I say, just for fun, let's go visit that. And you can see what you'll be doing someday for recreation on the other side, And of course, there's a lot more in the council, a lot more in the soul group. So there's a lot to there. Another subject would be just to do a show on energy psychology, because it's taking over.
Oh, I would love
over
that.
talking therapy,
Well,
and the people need to know
definitely.
that they're not stuck.
Yes, no, we're not stuck. It's just energy that's stuck. We're not stuck. Thank you for
Also,
being on a Little Less Fear podcast, Regan. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you for sharing your love and your light.
Okay.